Okay, get started. All right, everyone, welcome and welcome back. We're gonna start very soon, and we start with a very, brief delay, which is a couple of minutes, and due to a technical issue, but we figured out we are here, we are back. So let's wait people until it's settled down. And meanwhile, when you're joining, please let us know where you're dialing from. So we have 18 people on the call recently joining. Please let us know where you're dialing from. You can also use this chat, this call for networking purpose as well. So, and also this is a regular call that we are doing with the venture supporters, leaders in the venture supporting industry and so on, who technically this is a podcast. So we're gonna make some editing and put my on YouTube channel and also distribute to via the Founder Institute, Co-Capital, and every company profile that we have, we were going to distribute it, this content. So that's your chance to ask your questions as well. And you also, if you, right, you can also share your LinkedIn profile and so on for networking purpose. Okay. So let's get started then. Okay. Hello everyone, welcome to Founder Institute Japan, Korea, and Taiwan Global Program, and also the my podcast technically. So this is a public recording, and with Jet and G, and always I'm super excited for this. We're gonna talk about angel investing today, and thanks everyone for joining today. And my name is Erdin Çekinci, and I have the honor of founder, manager director of Founder Institute in this part of the world. And I'm also an active entrepreneur. At least I identified myself as an entrepreneur. And also I recently launched the Co-Capital, which is a VC focusing on the GTM traction and strategic alignment between the partners and startups and so on. So we are thrilled to have the Jet NG, which is who is a prolific angel investor. Also, he's going to introduce himself and talk about the topic that describes the both side of the angel investing as we're going to see for investor standpoint. Also, we're going to see a little bit startup standpoint as well. We're going to try to relate to both of the sides, because you could be aiming for both either. So with that being said, so let's get started. And today we're going to learn directly from someone who has mastered this game, which is Jed. He's is a globally recognized super angel and venture ecosystem builder, having grown a community of 1,400 LPs, launched 20 angel syndicates, and scaled his check size to 10x to invest up to $1 million per startup, now deploying $5 million plus annually with a 30% deal commitment rate. An ex-operator as an A16Z-backed unicorn, Rapid API, and Jet previously built and ran the world's largest API marketplace, giving him a rare operator plus investor perspective, which is extremely rare, right? Jet helps new and emerging angel investors start, run, and scale their own syndicates using a proven data-driven playbook, the same system that he used to turn angel investing into a multi-million-dollar annual side business. So in this AMA, he will break down how modern angel investing really works, how to attract LPs without the hype, and how founders can position themselves to win support from the top angels early. So to make this, valuable for everyone in the room, we are structuring this conversation across multiple chapters. You will see soon when we dive into the conversation. And Jed also will share some exciting slides, exciting more information to visualize everything, and so on. So with that being said, I'd like to start with a very brief presentation about what we are doing, how we are doing, who we are, in case that you don't know us, and or also in case of what a recording as well. And I'm gonna share the screen really quickly and walk you through a very simple, brief, a quick um, presentation. Just a second. Oh, I'm having some issue with my screen. Please give me for a couple of seconds. Okay, let me share my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, Adrian, we can see.
Okay. All right. So please type in the chat that if you don't know Founder Institute, because uh pretty rare, honestly speaking. Uh Especially this, I mean, this part of the world is not that rare that I encounter people who doesn't know, honestly. Um Anyways, so that being said, so today's agenda is basically a quick intro and a quick workshop, or some slides, some information share from Jed as well, also, and a quick panel discussion and Q&A AMA session. I'm assuming that because disproportionately the funders are much more higher audience in our network, because we're a startup accelerator program. We're well known as an accelerator program, but we also have a venture capital accelerator program, which thousands of actually angel investors also considering launching VCs as well. So it's I'm assuming the majority of the people are actually funders. So please let's see the founder's hand. If you're a founder, can you raise your hand by using the hands tool? Oh my God. Oh, shit, our audience mostly founders. Anyways, okay, the half, all right. We hit the like 13, 14 people ish who raised the hand. Okay, half of the audience, I would say. If you're a founder, you can raise your hand. Someone more popping up. Let's see. Okay, at least I can ensure that this recording will be reaching a lot of angel investors, at least potential angel investors, which we also be going to talk about these kind of things today too. I'd like to start with a very quick intro about what we do, and how we do in this part of the world. So I'm based in Tokyo, Japan, last 7 years. I've been in business last almost 15 years and so. But then as an entrepreneur, and I'm still technically an entrepreneur, but I start innovating on the other side of the table. So I'm the founder of Openfor.co, which is identifies and supports the broader potential entrepreneurs, including people, aspiring entrepreneurs as well, to support and collaborate with as a non-equity platform. So we provide almost like accelerator, world-class accelerator support for the 99% of the people who is not venture backable at all, including, one-person businesses, including influencers, B2B influencers, and so we able to identify these with our proprietary system, so they can be we can funnel them into whatever related about to them the most. If they're gonna build a startup, a product company, go on, and if they're gonna, maybe they can be an investor, and so we're pretty good at this, working with the individual level. So we ourselves as the founders and entire team actually, and our mentors and so on, are also individual layer all this. They are technically business influencers. All combined, we are able to reach 700,000 B2B audience, and this is growing every year, doubling up. I'm assuming this is going to be over 1.5 million this year. We're going to celebrate this, and across 50 countries, but predominantly, half is from the East Asia, which is English speaking venture audience, I would summarize. And the other half is from the US, especially Silicon Valley, because they have this interest on expanding here and partnering here and so on. And the Founder Institute, I mean, as most people know, is equity based but non-funding. accelerator for startup, especially determined entrepreneurs who are on the path of launching scalable startups. It's a bit different definition. It's for venture backable companies. And the founder capital is the first FI's official VC for best performing, top performing pre-seed but full-time founders for graduated startups of FI, so FI only. And a core capital VC, we identify it as a VC as a services firm for strategic deals and GTM, but technically it's literally VC. But we add this services layer on top, like back office service, content creation, many more to startups as well. Also ecosystem building activities and so on. We built these partnerships. I mean, core capital just very recently. So it's a continuation of the entire partnership we're doing in this part of the world. Because of this partnership and open-mindedness of the founder institute and entire team is actually be able to build this system, because doing this in Asia is a bit hard for on them, honestly speaking. And we're building a lot of different partner, co-deal partnerships and many more with other VCs, other strategic partners, corporates, governments, and many more. And yeah, these are some of our impacts so far. Our ecosystem so far. We're obviously events are the one of the most best way to engage with the people. Most of our funnel come from online events and content creation and so on. In case that, all right, who is not following my YouTube channel? Please raise your hand. We're gonna make a social pressure to you guys. I can hear the pop-up sounds. All right, only one. It means only one person not following. Raise your hand. No shy, okay? I'm not gonna call your name. Oh my God. Okay. Okay, please follow, all right? Sush, my team, please put my YouTube link, because this is how you can watch edited version of this call, by removing my fluff from the call, from the script, so we can enjoy with the Jets, our talk with Jag. So please subscribe if you didn't already. I'm gonna be Superman, all right? So entire channel is built upon for you guys, for the founders, and also for the other side of the table. For the investors, you can see a nice mixture of other contents out there, mostly long form, but we also double down on short form content as well. Please follow my subscribe, and also you can subscribe on LinkedIn and also Instagram as well. So we will slowly becoming a business influencers hub, and in a nutshell, interested in not just an accelerator program and ecosystem builder, but enabler, and trying to build more advocacy layer for creating a bigger venture ecosystem, so we can create much more startup companies and attract much more support to them, so we can create really decacorn companies perhaps from this part of the world, because this is such an underserved place rather than Silicon Valley. We bring these Silicon Valley practices to here, and perhaps we are succeeding on that. Anyways, in case you don't know, FI is the world's largest pre-seed stage focused accelerator program. 100 programs in 100 countries. I'm responsible for Japan, Korea, Taiwan. We almost hit the 9,000 portfolio startup companies and so on. And some of the world's, I'm saying we as because I'm wearing multiple hats, represent the multiple companies as a strategic partnership in this part of the world. So some of the most influential venture capital firms have ever invested in our portfolio startups. Also, very influential venture capital angel investors, also part of our 45,000 mentor pool and advisors. And in case that if you don't know, we have the VC Lab, which is a VC accelerator program as well. We also going to compare the venture capital versus angel investing with Jed as well today, and so on. And this is what VC Lab is. Anyway, so I'm gonna go try to finalize. Some of our well-known startup companies are here. I guess the most famous one, Udemy and Isuzu, maybe. Those are also unicorn companies. And all these powered by this strategic partnership, powered by with this actually over 300 mentor pool in this part of the world, all of them bilinguals and active supporters to build and advocate entrepreneurship in general, not just the venture backable So they all have gone through this entrepreneurship journey. At least 20% of them are either angel investors or VCs. They have this mentality of supporting funders from the before even they become founder. So potential founders. So with your very raw ideas, you can go and talk with these people, get support them. Most of them also have their own large networks as well. And without also a strategic partnership, that wouldn't be possible, obviously. Some of the partners you can see on my screen. We also give a lot of partner support, just like Accelerator too. Um, so in a nutshell, so as a summary, we build startups as FI and we build ecosystem through partnerships, just like our beautiful synergetic relation, this part of it, Openfor.co as well, and co-capital. And we build VCs, funds, and across the world and so on. All right. If in case that you're an entrepreneur, if you hear us first time, please take this test so you can learn your entrepreneurship attributes. How what kind of entrepreneur you are. You can see you can get a self-assessment test. That is famously designed by Jordan Peterson, which is a very famous psychologist. Co-created by him, which is very his YouTube channel is like 9 million subscribers and so on. This test taken by 250,000 people. This doesn't mean that you will be applying the program, but you need to click the apply. But it doesn't. You need to without completing your application, you don't apply. So basically, just you can take this test just to learn your entrepreneurship things. We have upcoming event. Lastly, I'm going to feature this and then I will stop. Um, uh, we are going to learn the Saudi Arabia ecosystem with Omar, and who he's leading the MENA, one of the largest, technically CVC fund of the Middle East, which based in actually Saudi. So we're gonna talk about this, which time zone wise is very suitable for our time. He was very kind to support us with this way as well. And in case that you are here, we're gonna have, I mean, you're based in Tokyo. We're gonna talk about Go Market Japan. This is going to be broadcasted in person and online. Going to be, and that's it. And also, new program of FI is recruiting if you're an entrepreneur or if you think that you want to start a venture backable company, get funding and so on. You might want to consider to apply, which is March 29 is the early deadline. Again, we actually have another program for individual people who is not suitable for starting venture backable companies, which Sush, maybe you can drop in the chat, which is our own company's program to prepare you. So build a business around your own personal brand, tell your story, and build a one-person business, perhaps get support in this exposure and accelerate great support as well. And maybe you can funnel up, you can enter this kind of VC backable programs later on with a product idea and a startup idea. Anyway, with that being said, I talk a lot. Sorry, Jed. So, Jed, I'm super excited to have you here. A little bit explain introduce you to the audience with my own way, but I'd like to also hear as also a first question is to know yourself. Could you please to explain you to the audience, to introduce you to the audience? Also let us know that how did everything started with this way, and we would like to know you more about you. So stage is yours.
Sure. Thank you, Erdi. Let me put open my screen and share some slides.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, we are recorded and online, correct?
Yeah, Sush, are we recording for sure? Like 100%?
Yes, we are recording.
Okay.
Great. Let me get started. Nice to see everybody here. Thanks for joining. Let me just introduce myself very quickly. I'm Jed. I'm currently in Singapore, but formerly a resident of Tokyo. In fact, I saw some names on the Founder Institute slide and a couple of people on this event today that I also personally know from the past. So myself, formerly as a tech operator, helped build the world's largest API marketplace. The startup was backed by A16Z. From there, I became a venture investor. So I'm a completely self-taught angel investor. I've gone seed to unicorn twice, also have an exit. In 2021, I wanted to scale up what I was doing because I had these initial data points of success. And so I thought, okay, maybe I can become a VC or something, but it was a pandemic, right? And nobody was starting VC funds at the time. So I started exploring this area called the syndicate, which I'll talk about today, and also lean into why I'm so bullish on this space. I believe that what we are building today with Angel School is we are building the world's most scalable angel syndicate. We have 1,500 investors around the world and growing. And my latest venture with angelschool.vc is we think of ourselves as an angel accelerator. The same way they're accelerators for founders and startups, we work with investors. Why? Because however you size the market for angel capital today, I think that market should be 10 times bigger. There's a lot of people that are interested, but it's actually really hard to learn the game. And so the same way that Founder Institute does programs that help give startup founders a leg up, I'm focusing my attention on building up the capital ecosystems. And I think when the two sides come together, this is where we have something really, really strong. So jumping into my slides, I'll talk about this weird thing that I do called the syndicate, right? Basically, you can think of it as somewhere in between an angel investor and a VC fund, right? People typically understand what both of these constructs are, but when it comes to syndicates, I'm actually not sure, right? So the most common analogy most of you would have come across is a syndicate is like an angel network. Okay, and we basically sit in between two sets of stakeholders. On the one side are investors. For my investors, what I bring to them is curated deal flow. We do global scale deal sourcing. We build full diligence and data rooms for our investors. Meanwhile, the proposition for our investors is for them to be able to build their own portfolio. Other than that, it's free deal flow, free diligence, zero commitment to invest. So it's a pretty good deal. On the other hand, we work with startups. Okay, so what we are providing with startups effectively is capital access. A lot of founders will say, if I work with an angel network or a syndicate or a VC, it's a large check, a six-figure check, and it's one line on the cap table. But if you think about what's making that possible, it's that I've spent months and years pre-building 1,500 investor relationships. And if I decide that I want to back a company, I'm opening that door up for all of you. And so as a result, we'll write 100, 200K check on the very low end, all the way up to seven figures. And the founders get a clean cap table. And because we know our investors personally, it also becomes access to a capital network, access to an expert network. And I think that's the other needle mover of working with a syndicate. Now, when it comes to syndicate building, this is what people know me for. And I am fully confident in saying I am very, very good at this. Right? So put this in perspective. Our investor network today is 1,500. In fact, the way our investor network grows today is completely inbound and through referrals, meaning I don't spend time looking for investors anymore. People come to us looking for our deal flow. It puts us in a position where we can write $500,000 up to $1 million checks, and we play at C to Series A. On a given year, with the right flow, the right deals, everything falling into place, we can probably deploy $5 to $10 million a year. I run 3 investment teams looking across the US, Europe, and Asia. I spend $60 on my tech and tools every single month. We've never taken funding for anything that we do. And by the way, you are looking at the entire team. Okay, I have nobody working for me. So we're able, if you look at these numbers, we have a scale that is probably top decile globally. But when it comes to efficiency, nobody comes close. I guarantee it. We crush it. Okay, so and this is from the perspective why everything that I've learned, that I'm sharing my beliefs around angel investing and also VC funds. Okay, and why syndicates, I think, are the dark horse in this venture game that is very much underappreciated. So let's start with some very basics, folks, okay? If you are thinking about startup investing, you basically have three paths. You can be an angel investor, you can invest through a syndicate or lead a syndicate, or you can start a VC fund, right? Those are your three main options. Because we're investors, let's start with the basics and just understand what returns look like, right? Because whether you invest as an angel, through a syndicate, or through a VC fund, the numbers and the mechanics are very different. So let's say you're an angel investor, and I'm going to pick somebody from the audience, and I'm going to pick Colin because Colin, I know him. I don't think as a friend, I think he wouldn't mind that I called him out. Colin is an angel investor, and let's say he's invested in these 10 different companies here, right? So every single bar here represents one single company, and they're the same height, which means Colin wrote the same check to every single company. Now, the whole point of venture is that you're investing in companies that has theoretically a very high or unlimited upside. Meanwhile, there is a risk of losing your money, right? Every single company that you invest in, you could literally go to zero. And so the whole game is the companies that return a profit, it needs to be a multiple because there's a high likelihood a lot of the companies that you back will go to zero. So let's say Colin's portfolio does this. We have the companies on the green that return a profit. The ones in red either lose money or go to zero. So if this is the individual company performance, Colin's portfolio looks like this. When we add up all of his base capital, this is his portfolio 1x return line, right? If he recovers all of this, he breaks even. And in this case, Colin's done okay. He has a profit in green that is greater than the losses in red. So this is like simple portfolio theory, right? Your gains minus your losses. Now, if Colin was investing through a syndicate, and here's what it would look like. Okay, let's say Colin is presented with 6 companies, A through F here. Now, the rule of thumb, if you are ever investing through a syndicate, is that on the average deal, about 5% of your costs will go towards, 5% of your capital will go towards admin. This will cover the SPV, the investment vehicle setup, and usually the syndicate takes a bit of management fees. So it ranges maybe 5 up to 7%. I'm just going to use 5% for simplicity, which means that on every deal, whatever you invest, 5% goes to admin and 95% is deployed. And the whole goal with a syndicate, the value proposition is that as an investor, you pick and choose your own portfolio. And so in this case, let's say Colin chooses to invest in companies B, D, and E in blue. And of course, here we are looking at returns only on those companies because that's what Colin invested in. And so we are calculating returns on the 1x return line. So even though out of every dollar that Colin invested on any company, 95% is deployed, we're only calculating pure returns above the original capital. And in this case, he's done okay. You have companies B and E that return a profit in green, and then company D in red, which means that it's a loser. And the economics to Colin looks like this. The syndicate, similar to a VC fund, will take something called carried interest. That's the share in the upside. So think of this as profit share. You invest in a company, it returns above 1x. Anything above that, you pay carried interest. Typically, that's 20%. So you get original capital back. Anything above that, you get 80 cents on the dollar. Okay, so this is what this chart on the right represents. Basically, on company B and E, Colin will get his original capital back up to 1x. After that, anything above that, he's going to get 80% of that. And on company D, everybody loses money on this, right? The syndicate doesn't make any money. Whatever loss there is, Colin's going to have to swallow that. And then finally, let's think about investing through a VC fund. So VC funds have something called a 2 and 20 model. Basically, that stands for 2% management fee a year, and that lasts for 10 years. So it's 20% of capital, and then 80% is deployed, and then the same 20% carried interest applies. So any profit, 20% of that is taken by the fund. So if you are investing into a VC fund, 20% of your capital goes towards management fees, 80% gets deployed. And the fund manager, somebody like Erding or whoever is leading the fund, they're going to deploy this 80% into this portfolio. And we have this portfolio that does this. Again, same pattern as before. The ones in green return a profit. The ones in red lose money. And here, when we add everything up, we are calculating the P&L based on the 1x return line. So in a VC fund, even though 80% is deployed into the startups, we're only calculating the profit above 1x, same like the syndicate. And the returns waterfall to an investor looks like this. You're entitled to 100% original capital back. Above that, the fund might have something called a hurdle rate. This is like borrowing money from investors, and they say, okay, you got to return 7 or 8% a year. It's almost like there's a cost of capital, so you got to have to return interest. And above that, the portfolio is going to take 80%, and then the investor gets 80% of that. And after that, the fund manager is going to get 20%. Okay, so this is the mechanics of how the returns look like between an angel investor investing directly, you are an investor through a syndicate, and finally investing through a VC fund. So I'm going to make the argument that the syndicate has advantages over both being an angel investor and also over a VC fund, right? My argument is very simple. Each of these investment structures has a place in the venture ecosystem. There's no one is better than the other. There's pros and cons to each. And in fact, we all kind of need each other in order to be successful, right? VCs cannot exist if there's no angel money. The syndicate helps bridge startups between going from individual angels to the VC, right? We all have a place to play. So one argument I'm going to make of why a syndicate makes sense over angel investment. Okay? So let's say you're an angel investor. You invest in a company that goes from 1x to 11x, so you get a 10x profit. So if you started out investing $20,000, you make a $200,000 profit on that, right? So it's a straight 10x or 1,000% ROI. And this is like how the math works. Now, if you're running a syndicate, let's say that in this deal, you personally can invest $5,000 in this company, and you can raise $100,000 of investor money. Your $5,000 10x's into 50,000 profit. Your 100,000 of investment capital that you've raised 10x's into $1 million. And if you take 20% carry, that's worth 200,000. And so as a syndicate lead on the right, you get a higher dollar profit with less capital at risk. So what is the benefit that you're making here as a syndicate lead? It's that you have leverage on capital, you get to scale up your investments, and you also take a slice of the upside, right? So my view is that for angel investors, if you are really serious about this, about investing and backing startups long-term, right? You have to be in this in a long-term game. Running a syndicate actually makes a lot of sense because your risk reward is way, way better than investing directly as an angel, right? The kinds of deals that I'm doing now as a syndicate lead is just not at all comparable to the kind of deals, the kind of access that I had to when I was doing it as an individual angel writing small checks. There's also an argument, an advantage that syndicates have over VC funds. And this is like a really important point. Okay, so to make this argument, I'm going to let's ground it in some data. What we're looking at here is data around VC capital deployment patterns in the US from 2009 to 2018. Basically, if you bought like an index fund of every single VC fund during that time period, the pattern you would see is that 50% of the capital deployed returns less than 1x. So this is the first bar here. And about 30% deployed returns 1 to 3x, let's call it 2x. And then 9% returns 3 to 5x, and so on and so forth, right? This is the pattern. You would expect this kind of like long tail pattern. This is like very normal. Now, the argument I'm going to make is that syndicates structurally have a better economic advantage over a VC fund. Okay, and why? Because a syndicate does deal by deal investing, we take carried interest deal by deal. Whereas on a VC fund, when you take carried interest, it's the entire portfolio. So that portfolio will include some winners, some losers. When everything nets out, whatever profit is left, the VC fund takes 20%. Whereas on the syndicate, you have to think about every deal you do like a financial call option. The ones that return above 1x, you take 20% upside. The ones that lose money, investors are swallowing most of that loss. Okay, that's the structure. So what we're looking at here is the financial modeling between a syndicate and a VC fund. So let's say we deployed $50 million in that portfolio, right? Based on the data that we showed. Basically, that $50 million deployed would return $115 million of capital or $65 million profit. Now, if you were a VC fund and taking 20% carry, you would have $13 million of carried interest. However, if your VC fund has a return hurdle, right? This is that interest rate that we talked about from that you owe to investors, and that's 7% a year. If you deployed $50 million on day one and that interest compounded for 10 years and you don't return anything, basically your fund carried interest goes down to 3.4. Right? But we can't really tell what the actual number is because the timing is an issue. All we know is that in the fund scenario, in the middle here, the carried interest for the partners is going to be between 3.4 and $13 million. Now, on a syndicate, we have two big differences, right? One is on a syndicate, there will never be a return hurdle. And the second thing is we take deal by deal carried interest, which means that this first row of companies that return a loss, the syndicate carry is actually zero. It's not minus, right? So you don't carry that on the balance sheet, but anything that returns above 1x, you take 20%. And so here in the syndicate case, you make $15.6 million of carried interest. You have basically about a $2.5 million difference because of deal by deal carried interest versus the fund level carried. And then depending on the hurdle rate, you have another difference of maybe up to $9.7 million, right? So doing an apples to apples comparison, assuming identical portfolio, identical positions, this is here mainly to illustrate the economic structural difference of a syndicate model. So let's bring this all together, right? In case this is my breakdown, how I think about a syndicate versus what I'm comparing against a subscale fund. Usually fund managers who are starting out, they end up with a small fund, right? If we do a side-by-side comparison, then I think the syndicate has a lot of advantages. Because in terms of scale, a first fund might be $5 or $10 million. This is the median amount, what we see in the market. And compare that to a syndicate, you'll be writing a 100 to 200K check, same as a $5 or $10 million fund. So you're writing the same check size. Second, the syndicate has a deal level carry advantage. We talked about that. On the other hand, on a syndicate, you really don't have ongoing management fee every year. But my counter argument is that on a small fund, a $5 or $10 million fund, your 2% management fee isn't worth a lot anyway. So it's not actually all that beneficial to you. The third advantage of a syndicate is having flexibility, right? As a syndicate, I get to deploy capital like any investor. When people ask me what kind of deals do I like, yes, I have an investment thesis. I invest in A, B, and C, but the honest answer is I want to invest in the deals that has the best possible chance to make me money. And so the more that I can access the market, the more I can deploy my capital like any investor without the constraints of an investment thesis of a VC fund that's valuable. So having thesis flexibility and optionality is a valuable thing for a syndicate or a VC fund, in my view. Another argument would be time to market. Right? It could take 2 to 3 years for you to raise your first VC fund, and 75% of people fail along the way. With a syndicate, if you do the right things with proper execution, you can be in the market in 3 months. So here you have a 90% faster time to launch, which is like huge. Why spend 3 years when you can spend 3 months and be deploying capital? And when it comes to proving success with a VC fund, you've got to raise the money, you've got to deploy it, that capital needs to incubate, it needs to show some performance, and that's going to take you maybe 5-7 years realistically. The worst case in the syndicate is that if you fail, you walk away, and you do that in 3 months. So it doesn't crush you, right? It's something that you can bounce back from. But of course, there's a downside. When you're doing a syndicate, there's things that you need to focus, that you need to solve. It's deal by deal fundraising. It's not for everyone. Because investors control capital and they're deciding which ones to invest in, there's unpredictability. So how do you solve that? Perception is a problem, right? Sometimes startups will say, I want to be venture backed. No startup will ever say, I want to be syndicate backed. And so the access isn't the same. And working on short timeline deals is actually harder for a syndicate because we need time to do fundraising. So this is a side-by-side comparison, my view of a syndicate versus a first-time VC fund. So let me end this here, right? I'm going to give you all a few guidelines for angel investing. If I go back in my journey 9 or 10 years and say, what are the things that I want myself to know, right? So if you're new to the venture game, here are things I would encourage you all to keep in mind. Number one, returns are your North Star. Everything else is secondary. Impact, inclusion, helping people, even the environment, that is secondary. I'm not saying these things are not important. Of course, we have to solve the world's problems, but the only way that you are going to make what you do as an angel investor sustainable is if you can drive returns. If we can help people, help the environment along the way, great, let's do it. But you have to be laser focused on generating returns. Second, I think about venture as a game of scale, right? This is a skill-based game. Right? And it is something that you can learn and develop. So start this early. I actually reject a lot of thinking when people say, hey, you know what? If you want to learn angel investing, you should just write a lot of checks early on. You're getting experience, yes, but is it helping you build skill? Not necessarily. Those things are different. Number three, get repetition. See as many deals as you can. Raise your bar for what good looks like. Basically, commit your time into looking at 20, 30 pitch decks every single week. You're only going to be spending 5 minutes per pitch deck, and just use this to get practice, know what the market looks out there, right? All of this is effort, doesn't cost you money. It's great. Second, learn to do due diligence. Right? I think generally speaking, angel investors are pretty bad about it, right? They sort of don't actually know what doing due diligence is. You have a right to it. Also, be aware of this, right? If you are risking your capital, you have a right to understand what the company is because you are risking capital. Of course, you have to calibrate it to the right stage. How you do DD on a Series A company versus a pre-seed company, very, very different. Next, I have this rule. Every deal for me starts with a no. Okay, and we are building up for a yes. So you don't want to go the other way around and find a deal and look for a reason to say yes. Okay, you actually need to build up conviction. That's my recommendation. Next, if you're going to play in venture, you need to diversify. You need to build portfolio, but do it over time. Okay, so take your time. You can build a portfolio of 20, 30 companies over 5 to 10 different years, right? Don't rush out. Go do 10 deals in your first year and run out of money. And then you're basically making most likely very bad bets. And the last thing is there will always be another deal. Don't let FOMO, don't let pressure get in the way of your judgment. Don't be afraid of the deal to walk away anytime. Statistically, you are right for doing nothing and saying no 99.9% of the time. Okay, that's the statistics of venture investing. So to just wrap this up, I'll just share something a little bit about what Angel School does. If any of you are interested, I'm happy to share more. I also have a free resource to go give away. What I operate at Angel School are fellowships. We start out with world-class programs, and I work with investors all the way from early in their journey, writing their first startup check, to leading syndicates and becoming super angels. This is what I do. Now, what happens after the programs is invite all of you investors to join my investment committee. Why? Because I want to create a safe space for everybody to learn and get repetition. So the investment committee is nothing more than doing a Zoom call once every 2 weeks. In 1 hour, you're going to look at 5 or 10 different companies, and you're going to learn from myself and all of the other more experienced investors. So we're going to give you real deal experience on real startups. We are going to help you build your diligence skill, network with other investors. We also have a carry sharing program. I actually share upside in all of the deals with all of the investors that help me. And I'm proud of the work that we do. In our programs, we've impacted hundreds of investors in dozens of countries. Every single investor that we work with today, it's inbound, word of mouth, and referrals, right? I actually have no marketing budget and in fact, no marketing team because it's me. Every single avatar that you see here is a real person, and we're proud to bring impact like this around the world. The last thing I'll leave, and we can jump to the Q&A, is I'm going to give away this bonus resource. It's for free. It's a 3-part masterclass series for angel investors, how to get into venture. So with that, we can open up for questions. I'm going to put into the webinar chat my LinkedIn in case you want to connect, and also the link to where to get this free masterclass. Thank you for listening, everybody.
Well, thank you so much, Jared. It was really, really insightful. I really appreciate it. It was great. All right, everyone, please don't forget to connect with the Jed. Also, grab the free resources that he shared with us. A personal take it, recommend it, honestly, and it was great. Thank you so much, Ed. So I believe the audience has a lot of questions, and some of them are coming up. And I'd like to, kick this off with some basic questions from me. Jed, you can see me as a mentee, so you're my mentor. And I would love you to become my mentor for sure.
I'm honored.
So please help me to clarify and some of the important parts that have some questions and so on. Um, so let me go back to my question. I took some notes actually. Um, so I think I was going to ask more questions about articulating you know um your background and anything like this, knowing you more, but actually we don't even need anymore. So let's dive into the really important questions from the presentation and so on. Um, so I guess the first question is here. Um, all right, I think I should give you some background about myself and why I'm asking these kind of questions. Is like I recently launched a core capital, and we still didn't make our first closing. So it's kind of slow process. An average closing process like 2.5 years and so on, I guess. So I thought we could do much earlier than that, but that's only my fault. I mean, I have a lot of distractions actually. But all of them are excuses. But I should have sometimes I think that I should have started as a syndicate, and I'm very verbal on this. It's a confession. But luckily, our structure as a firm, thanks to the VC that actually, uh, with their new model, allowed me to be act like you know, a syndicate. It's kind of quite innovative solution they have. But at the same time, the dynamics, but they don't give the dynamics, because it's a VC fund dynamics, VC firm dynamics. I'd like to a little bit learn more on the syndicate dynamics. I guess it's a comment here. Your solution here, your teaching is a hybrid model, and it's perfectly fits into the new reality of the venture investing, because things are changing a lot there. And that's just one of the comment here. But I guess the most important, I guess maybe the elephant in the room for the most of the aspiring investors, angel investors, or syndicators is how they can really build their own network with other investors. This is what I see that they struggle a lot and jump into investing maybe too quick without building up their own pipeline of deals, deal follow, and co-investors, or building their own syndicates and so on. So how would you build an angel investor network for yourself? This is a question that is also implemented, related to startups as well, because they're always seeking this, funding opportunities for their startups. But this time I'm
Yes.
asking me as an angel investor, how would you build this rapport and network of
Yes.
investors to collaborate?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, let me respond more broadly, Ernie. The first thing is my first comment is that I know Founder Institute. I know the work Adeo is trying to do with like VC Lab. I frankly, like, just in pure honesty, if we're having an honest conversation, I think it's something the organization should be careful about. Because if you're setting somebody down the path of building their fund, it's a very long, hard road. And we have an obligation to set people up for success. Right? Because, if you're saying, the program is free and they try it for like 2-3 years, it's also a very expensive cost to them. Okay. My very practical view of VC funds, if somebody really aspires to start a VC fund, and I'm not against VC fund, by the way, right? To be 100% clear, I think there's a place for each of these structures in the ecosystem. It does make more sense to start with a syndicate and then leapfrog to a fund. Why? Whether when you're building an investor network, what is like the core mechanic of building investor networks? It's relationships, it's trust. Okay, there's no getting around this. I think VC Lab does the same thing. Like, if you're out fundraising, the first thing they will do is like go hit up your warm network, right? Those are the people who will give you a chance. This is the reality of fundraising. But the difference is, if you are fundraising for a fund, you're saying, here's my thesis, it's a $250,000 minimum check, and you need to commit for 10 years, versus building a syndicate. If you're approaching your network, you might say, my minimum check is $5,000 or $10,000. My deal flow is free. My diligence is for free. And if you want to invest with me, I'm giving you control. It's also a lot more affordable, right? So we're going to the same audience, an audience you already have, but the syndicate gives more control to investors. It's also a lot more affordable. Now, one thing that I'm big on, philosophically, when I build my syndicate, early on when I started out, I mentioned that, hey, you know what? Today, my investor network growth is completely inbound and referral based. I can show you my CRM. I have 150 people requesting access to my deal flow, but they don't have access to that because I haven't met them yet. And this is one of my rules. I just need to establish that we know each other. that I know you, you know me, we have this trust before I share my deal flow. Right? And we've made a big effort philosophically to build for scale, right? So this 1,500 investors we have in our network, that is not accidental, right? It is by design. We want scale because with scale earning, this is how we drive network effects. So I'm going to share something here with you, right? And I'm kind of going off script here and
Yeah.
just pulling up slides. Let me know when you can see this.
Now, yes, I can see.
Okay. What this slide is showing is the blue line. We're showing the number of investors on my CRM over time, right? So how many people are following my deal flow? When I started doing this, I noticed this pattern. Like every time I was doing a deal, I seemed to get more interest, a spike in the number of people wanting access to my deal flow. So the question was like, is it noise or is there some kind of pattern? So I pulled this data and then I went back to my inbox to see when I was sending emails, to know when I was like hosting founder calls, all of these things, and I started mapping this. Okay, so here's the pattern that we found. In May of 2020, I announced the first startup ever that I was going to syndicate. And then I ran the deal in July. Somewhere around July, I announced the second startup and I ran the syndicate in October. I announced startup number 3 at the end of 2020. We had an update, and then I ran the syndicate in 2021. And then startup 4 was layered somewhere in between here. So when you look at this pattern here, we saw this correlation. That's actually very cool. Every time we do a deal, if the deal seems interesting, our existing network was referring new people to our network. All right. So I think building out investor networks, I mean, my answer to you is like when you start out, relationships and trust, you have to do the unscalable things of getting to know people, make time for that. Why would anybody invest in your deals if they haven't met you yet? This is why I meet all of my investors. Right? But if you do that right, build that foundation, then you can start layering referral effects, right? Up to this point where, like I mentioned today, this is how we got to a point where I do not go look for investors anymore. Everybody is coming, asking for my deal flow. And when they do, I'm choosing whether or not to accept. So the dynamic is very, very different.
Does investing into startups also brings new flow of new angel investors to co-invest?
Yes. Right? I think the whole point here is that your activity starts this referral loop. You have to build the right base. There are some like core foundations, core principles, like making sure this is a relationship and people business, right? And then you start layering things on from there.
I see. Um, so I'd like to maybe double click on how did you build this network of, angel investors? And you explain with the graph because investing, making the syndicate itself also bring more investors to on board for sure and grow the network. But is there any other technique or perhaps maybe marketing techniques or so on did you do to grow the other angel investors network to build syndicates?
Yeah. And I think the big breakthrough for me when I started out was scripting and operationalizing. How do you onboard an investor to your network? Right. So
Mm-hmm.
when I started out, it was like warm network. When I figured out my formula that I spend 30 minutes with every investors before they see deal flow. I have a 5-point script that I work through of what we want to cover. And we also basically, I also developed my own FAQ. This is for resistance handling. If they say A, we know how to say B. And so when you know how to do all of this, it
Mm-hmm.
becomes a matter of execution. And that's very powerful. Right. And so this is like why I teach what I do to people who are starting their own syndicates. I basically say, hey, you know what? I've basically productized and built the roadmap for you. You have to go out and just go execute this. Right. And then it's just a matter of like repetition. because I believe that once you can get somebody to their first 50 or 100, after that, the referral effects start to take over, and then it becomes autopilot from there.
I see. You know what's I know we are talking about the engine investment and so on, but also something is very interesting comes out here, which is you actually build kind of a one person business, but on a high level scale on investing. That is also pretty much successful. There's also a lot of things to learn. The efficiency, systems that you build, everything you build is actually good material for us to learn actually.
Yeah, I think the way, if you think about what we do at Angel School, right, there's two parts. Like one is I'm an investor. We run our own syndicate. We talked about that. And we also have the education business, which is a P&L on its own, right? And on that one earning, we're completely bootstrapped, right? I built the product, all of that by myself, and we market and we sell it. So I think there's something to be said about operating under these conditions of extreme constraints and just going back to the fundamentals of like business building. And those things are not easy for sure, but then it does make you sharper, right? It just forces you on like fundamental survivability.
I see. It's great. A lot of things to learn. And meanwhile, the audience, please let us know more questions. I'm waiting the questions pile up. Time. I know we're talking like kind of investors topic, but if you're a founder, you can also drop your question in the chat. With the remaining time, we also maybe last 15 minutes, so we will also go a quick run through the startup questions as well too. All right. All right. Okay. So I guess all right. I'd like to also a little bit ask questions regarding to deal flow because it seems like um good deal attracted good other investors as well. And at the same time, being able to win an allocation also kind of challenging, especially I'm just guessing with just assumption level as a syndicate. Like as a syndicate sounds a bit challenging to win, hot deals, good allocation race, elbow race between some deals. Would you agree on that, or how to how to win great deals? Let's say.
Yeah. So yeah, great question. There's a few things that we've built in to make us more successful in this regard, right? So as a very broad generalization, it's true. If the deal is very hard, it's oversubscribed, then it's a very binary decision. You can commit, bring the capital or not, right? But you'd be surprised earning. In fact, today, a lot of the deals that we get in, I think they're very attractive. They're very interesting. And we're also able to get in alongside VCs because we're a syndicate. Basically, for us, it's really simple, right? We when I meet founders today, especially when they're hot and they don't need money, I don't go into that conversation and talk about money. It's like it's not interesting to them, right? In fact, so my top level message to founders is always, I have 1,500 investors in my network that looks at my deal flow. I know every single one of them. Which door do you need me to open for you? Right? That's a more interesting conversation when a founder doesn't need money. And it's actually really simple for them. If they're raising $10 million, let's say, and we can write a 250, 500K check easily. It's an easy one, right? For the founder, it's like, look, I have no target ownership stake. I'm not fighting the VC to lead the round. It's just we're looking to fill in the round, right? It's either they're willing to accept the check, we like the deal, and if that's it, that's all we need. So it isn't necessarily the case that we need to like fight head to head with the VCs. There's another part of the equation, which is how do you get X? How do you solve deal pipeline? Right? If you think about the position that we're in today, We have 1,500 investors in our network. On the low end, we're writing $250,000 checks up to $1 million. Great. Basically, the position we're in is that capital is not my constraint. We can do deals like that all day long, no problem at all. The bottleneck for us is actually how do you find deals at scale and how do you do diligence at scale,
Yeah.
right? And so this is kind of like one of the tricks and strategies. Let me show you something. Remember earlier I showed you our fellowship model, right? Which is the we start with a program, and after that we have the investment committee, right? That's our model, our proposition to investors who want to learn. Okay. Now, as a result of this, because our investor network is so global, today I operate 3 investment teams. We have a US team. Their task is to find and do diligence on US deals. We have one in Europe, one in Asia. So when you look at it this way, Angel School is an infrastructure play. It's not a technology infrastructure, it's a human capital infrastructure. Because if you think about accessing the next deal, and to do diligence at scale, which is a very hard problem, right? If you meet a company, it's in another market, another vertical, another technology which we're not familiar with. How do you solve that? It's actually about people. And so the other way, the strategy of Angel School on the education side is that we are building an expert network. Right? I operate these 3 investment committees. We have a weekly membership across the 3 of maybe 40, 50 people join live every single week, and they help contribute deal flow. They help with due diligence. And so this is now the other uplift. How do we find deals? How do we do diligence? If you don't have a massive brand, if you don't have a lot of funding and operational investment into a team, well, we are solving it through community. So that's kind of the trick here.
The investing committee is technically a team member, but they're kind of like a partnership for you, right? Do you like how do you incentivize them? Or are they all are angel investors, but it's a special tier, perhaps, in your community?
Yes, they are in our community by virtue of being angel investors or want to be better angel investors or want to like start and build their syndicate. It's one of those things, right? So that fundamental culture and interest is super, super important. Now, on top of that, we also have this carry sharing program that I mentioned,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Which is that on every deal that I do share the upside on the deals to be fair to people. But it's not the leading point, right? I'm very like open about that, right? If people are here just for economic upside, it's the wrong culture. I don't want to build a bunch of investment bankers around the table and everybody's like a shark, right? But we are here because we love this game.
I see. Okay, I have one sensational question. But for this,
Yeah.
I need to see your face full screen for
All right.
recording.
Yeah, hit me.
Are you ready?
Yes.
All right, and that will be a one viral moment, I guess. All right, I don't want to build so much, you know, emphasis on that, but um, so do you think that venture capital is dead?
I think that there are too many fund managers in the market and the world cannot sustain it.
Hmm.
Like that's the reality. And I know you're representing FI, but in some ways, like the industrial production of fund managers, which is kind of the goal, in a way, the structure
Hmm.
is dangerous to a lot of people.
Right. This is gonna go viral.
Some people are going to get very upset too.
Yeah. You know, um, because this is like, I know it's kind of a silly question. I purposely asked this because these kind of things are at the same time a topic of humor, you know? Um, anyways, that's great. So let me go back to my my questions. Because
Can I make one more point on the VC question, actually?
sure.
I have this like other point, right? There is this view out there that this narrative that emerging fund managers outperform more experienced ones. And I've looked at my own set of data, and I think from a data perspective, it is fundamentally wrong. Okay. And in fact, when people make that argument, it usually appears that way because they are cherry picking data points. Right. So on a data perspective, it's just like wrong. I like dispute that argument when it's made. The other thing that I would say is it's very unintuitive for people to make that argument, right? Like think about the argument that you are making. You're saying that if you start out, the more you do your job, the worse that you're going to be at it, the worse you're going to be performed. That makes like absolutely no sense, and like I don't understand how anybody can like stand by that argument, right? By that argument, your first fund is the best fund statistically that will perform, and everything else is downhill. If you look at it from that perspective, do you actually want to be a fund manager?
Is it a question to me? Last one.
No, it's a rhetorical question. I'm just like making a point, right? Like the whole argument is just it doesn't hold water for me.
Honestly, I can answer this one from my standpoint. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I enjoy it as an entrepreneur. I like being an operator. I never wanted to be into VC side, but uh, what I'm doing right now is actually innovating the game as well. Perhaps, I mean, I'm aiming for it. I'm pretty much earlier stage than you a lot, so that's why I got a lot of things to learn. And when I entered this game, I realized that how antiquated everything are, and how like human driven. It's pretty much human driven, like an agency business, but at the same time, investing into high tech, high growth companies, and very much, everything is all about uh, who you know the best and how do you make this deal between these the relationships network. Um, So there's a lot of things to actually innovate there through
Mm,
tech and business model innovation and so on. But at the same time, it's considered as a kind of elite game for
yes.
the most part of the world. And luckily, it's started to be able to come down from like Harvard graduate fund manager stereotype, that kind of things, to all the way down. Or exited founder, for example, can easily start at fund level, VC level. Um, but so I'm really happy to see that everything gets much more democratized. And that's my, uh, point of view. It's become much more accessible for a person like me. There is no reason that I could be in an VC before. So now I'm proudly able to enter this game at this, start to innovate there, perhaps.
I,
That's just
I
like,
agree. I think that venture capital as an industry is guilty than most other industries of being like exclusionary, right? If you look at capital flows to certain groups, it's very, very, very clear, right? In fact, when I started doing this, everybody just like laughed me off, right? Nobody I thought I had a chance to be successful, and how many VC funds actually can say that they've backed, unicorns from like the seed stage, right? I
hmm,
don't know what the stats are, but I don't think very many have actually achieved that.
yeah.
And so this is why the education, sharing knowledge, and being clear about the reasons that we're doing what we do, right? That really matters. Because I think, we need to do a better service to the community.
Definitely. I have a feeling that the angel investing and the syndication are also very much inclusive and accessible for many angel investors, also for startups. Would you agree on that?
Yes. Here's one perspective on syndicates for founders. Okay, something that I think the founders in the room should listen to.
Mhm.
If you think about what a syndicate does, right? We basically do deal by deal fundraising, right? Opposite to a VC fund. I start out with meeting a company, meeting a founder, doing the diligence, all of this. And when I reach a point where I say, yes, I want to back this company, this founder for what they are building for the future, I then need to start fundraising. Now my mindset shifts. I have to basically think like a founder fundraising. And so we've gotten really, really good at messaging and positioning. And so this is, like, I think, one of the big things that founders can learn from how syndicates operate. How do you tell a story for a deal, right? Position the deal, tell the right narrative in order to raise capital. And I think when I started doing this in 2020, 2021, we started and built a playbook, right? Experimented with everything from scratch, literally from zero, so that we could approach this on a first principles basis. And what we've arrived at today, Erding, is basically we have a process and IP for how we market deals and fundraise so that 95% of the time it's self-service. Okay, so think about it. 95% of the time when an investor indicates interest in one of our deals, they are ready to commit capital without me having to talk with them, right? And so if you get it down to a science, you can like dial it down, right? And this is like how we're very, very good at this.
So generally, you lead the deals, right? You are the lead investor. Is that
I'm the
correct?
lead investor for my syndicate, but not necessarily the round of the company. I could be, but not always the case.
I see. Cool. All right. Hmm. Oh, okay. So I have a different question. Um, kind of not super related about any question, any topic that we talk here, but I'm really curious because I'm curious your own success, you know, as a business also, um, as an investor who is succeeding and innovating in angel investment phase world. What do you think that the modern marketing techniques and social media and the content on teaching online, anything like this, or things that we are doing right now, play a role for you on your success?
Yeah, it's a good question. I honestly think, Erding, that marketing and brand building is my weaker skill set. So I don't know if I'm the right person to be asking about
You're
this.
doing great. You're doing great.
Thank you. I thought it was a disaster.
Mm.
No, but I think content and thought leadership really helps with credibility, right? Building. I mean, I think what I'm good at is like building content and telling things in an authentic way, right? This I believe in, right? I'm not like kind of salesy, pushy. It's just not my style, right? So I think the authenticity is part of my brand. Um, but having a platform like that can absolutely work to your advantage, right? So this is like one of my growth hacks when I work with emerging syndicates. When you are starting out, look, how do you build your investor network, right? Go back to first principles. Number one is always warm network, people who know you, who will give you a chance. But you can also amplify perception, right? Having a podcast, a YouTube channel, right? And a community that you run. And these things like give you credibility, and those are other levers that you have to play with. So here's another like potentially, you know, could go viral. I don't know. You tell me. One of the greatest tricks. I don't want to call it tricks, I set it up that like I purposely did it. But one of the greatest, let's call it perceptions that we've created is that when somebody looks at my LinkedIn profile, they look at Angel School, they think we're a 50-person organization. right? I people reaching out to me all the time. Do you need work visas? Do you need more office space? And well, meanwhile, it's just Jen sitting at home, on Zoom, having a nice webinar with Erding and some great people in Tokyo, right? And so this is like my, I guess, example of how using like perception and platforms to your advantage in marketing like really works.
Most definitely. Um, this is gold. Really, I'm really having a great time, Chad. I really don't want to stop this one.
I'm glad.
Maybe one last question on the investor side, which is assuming that there must be a lot of investors are joining this or aspiring to become an angel investor or VC, but sometimes they don't identify themselves as an investor, right? Does it happen to you sometimes, like, or maybe you, if you know any stats on this, you can share with us, like how many percent of people become an angel investor, and and yeah, because I'm really curious on this because it started to become my own LP base as the first comers, the first investors. They're curious about it, venture in general, but they don't know anything about it. Either actually in
Correct.
two different spectrum. They're young and successful versus I have people who's pretty, senior, older, successful, don't know anything about venture. They don't know what
Yes.
startup means sometimes. I need to explain what startup means. But they're wealthier than average people, so become eligible to become an angel. Any comments on this?
Yes. Uh, yeah. So here's my view, right? How if we sat down, Erding, like, or with us as a group, right? We sat down and like did some math, right? Just take a piece of paper and did some rough on back of the envelope calculation. How many angel investors are out there? How many deals they do? What's their average check size? And just multiply that. Whatever number that we get, Erding, I guarantee you it is like 10 times lower than what it should be,
Yeah.
right? That market is way, way bigger than it should be. And it's actually so suppressed because of very basic reasons, right? Okay, I heard of this startup investor thing. How do I find startups in the first place? How do I find deals? And then I heard about I'm supposed to do due diligence. Like, what does that actually mean? I don't know. Or I get a startup's data room and then I get this cap table. I can figure out that it represents ownership, but then what does that actually mean? Why does this matter? Right? It's just really, really fundamental reasons that these people don't know. And so my whole approach to the market is like, look, you can go out, what are your options? You either, because of this, stay on the sidelines and you don't participate, right? So you're losing out on potentially wealth creation opportunities. Or you can go in blindly and just write checks, right? And it's what I did. I'm not proud of it, but a lot of people do it. And I don't think intuitively, right? I know as a person that this cannot be the best way to learn, right? It's actually kind of an unintuitive, not very smart way to learn, which is why we came up with our model of like education, right? And the education for me is like very much about giving back, right? How do you help people time compress what they learn? How do we help people learn angel investing as quick as possible, as cheap as possible, as least risk as possible, right? And we do it. This is why we came up with the program structure of, building a proper program as a product, treat it with a real product mindset. And after that, give this forum for actual real learnings through the investment committee. The byproduct of this earning, what we found, it's been phenomenal for that, is that, I mean, firstly, the education is a P&L on its own. We take that very seriously because I think people, they don't take it seriously if they get it for free, right? What we know is that we see this time again. When somebody decides to go through our program, they pay, honestly, it's not that expensive, it's a few $100s. They are really giving a signal. They're giving a signal that I care enough to learn and I'm taking it seriously enough that I'm willing to pay something. 100% of those people end up following our deal flow. So it becomes an investor acquisition channel. And we also know that they are statistically far more likely to deploy capital into our deal flow. So we get share of wallet because there's that trust relationship built in through the education. So for me, we basically built on layers and layers of these like different flywheels, right? The education is just another piece of this, right? A way that we've used that to also grow our investor network to become, better investors together.
It's amazing. Yeah, I mean, another gold. This is
That was great.
great. I'm learning a lot, honestly. Um, we're also trying to build some sort of flywheel around around us, the Co Capital and Openfor.co. But still a lot of iterative process to figure out, especially for the investor side. For the founder side, it works very well. Um, anyways, so um, there are some questions from the founders as well. So I'd like to go through these questions. Um, there is this. I highly encourage everyone to put the questions to the Q&A box so we can see better in an organized way. But I'm seeing that I I noticed that there is more questions in the chat. Okay, let me start the final. Okay. Give me for a second to process this because that like, there are some intriguing questions. Maybe we can start with these intriguing questions. So I'm assuming that most of the people asking question here are the founders because looks like founder questions. Hmm. How do you? Hmm. A lot of India related questions coming up. Anyway, I'm gonna start from the most broadest one, which is Anthony's question in the Q&A box. Because this kind of question is really intriguing for investors. So basically, Anthony asks that, can you give an example of an investment that you have made that turned out to be a losing investment, a loser investment? And
Yes.
so, did you miss something in your DD, or did something that take place after the investment?
Yeah. Good question. I'll tell a story about a company called SpeechKey. Okay, and I can tell about it because like now it's like official that the company like will not survive. What this company does, SpeechKey, they were built a technology platform to create audiobooks at basically 80% cheaper than how audiobooks are created, which is normally by human narrators, right? So imagine if you have like a storybook, Harry Potter or whatever, in order to turn that into an audiobook, you need a studio and you need professional recording equipment and you need voice actors for all of these people and you need to get facilities and booking and you need sound engineers and you need processing and all of these things. Very human services. And this is why creating an audiobook costs, I don't know, $5,000 to $10,000. So with technology, the idea was that SpeechKey could ingest a book, identify that, who is the reader, who are the characters, have voices, all of these things, and use AI voices to basically narrate a book. And it's going to be 80% cheaper. It made a lot of sense. Um, I mean, I'll cut to the chase just because I know we're watching time. The company didn't work out. They grew to a point, and then after that, they stagnated. And basically, I attribute the failure to two things which I overlooked, right? One is that um, the market size was too small. So audiobooks in the US was like, I don't know, like a $7 billion market or something. And it sounds like a very big number. But the proportion that is AI generated is very, very little. You have this situation of um, channel concentration. So about 70% of audiobook sales was through Amazon Audible, and they explicitly had a no AI book policy, no AI policy, right? So that chokes off a lot of the market. And it could also be a matter of market timing, because you go like, if Amazon changed their policy at the right time, suddenly it opens up this whole market, right? Maybe it was the wrong bet. The other part of the equation that I think I missed out is understanding buyers. In this particular industry with audiobooks, any sort of like creators, you have these things called guilds, right? Any sort of like artists or creators, you have these guilds which operate like unions, and they're there to basically protect the workers, the creators. And that resulted in this situation where there was a lot of resistance, even though for the book publisher, they're like, hey, I can create an audiobook. Instead of costing me 10,000, it's going to cost me 2,000, all right, or even less than $1,000. It makes a lot of sense. We open the market, we can make a lot of money. But then the publishers have all these guild or union relationships with the voice actors and the authors, and they're all resisting this. And so in the end, I think those were the two main reasons that it didn't work.
How about the other way around? Maybe we can also have a quick look there to which what is the best deal that you have done so far?
Yeah. Um, do we have time to give two examples?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about Turing.com, right? This one people kind of like know me for. I invested in Turing.com at seed stage when the company was $15 million valuation. The last round in Q1 of last year, they did their Series E. It was a $2.2 billion valuation, right? So
Unicorn.
yeah, double unicorn. Why did I choose to invest in this company? Um, I talk about this deal not because financially it's an outstanding success, right? I personally invested, and when the company hit Series B, I had my syndicate. So we actually doubled down with a $500,000 check, right? So we could amplify it using the syndicate. The only reason, by the way, I didn't invest in Series A was that the company was so successful, they skipped Series A. Okay? But why am I talking about this, right? It's easy to talk about the flashy things. It's a $2.2 billion company, blah, blah, blah. But I credit that deal because it really was one of these deals that brought me back to first principles in terms of thinking about what's important to me when I evaluate a company, which is the market size big? Is the value proposition, the problem that the way that they're solving this problem, is it a 10x better solution than the market, than what's available out there, right? Understanding, evaluating founder experience and credibility, and all of these things that inform my decision-making framework today on how we do deals. Okay, so that's story number one around Turing.com. The other story that I'm going to tell is a company investment that I'm closing today, right? I'm not going to name the company because it's still kind of like private. But this company that we're investing in, they are in water technology. It's basically a hardware business. And I thought in my life I would never do a hardware deal, right? Just because I don't like the economics of hardware businesses, right? It costs a lot of money to develop product, to scale supply chain, to ship inventory, all of these sorts of things. It's very complicated. Plus, you're basically selling boxes, basically. But this particular deal, we found through our network and just like fundamental diligence, right? And this to me is the network effect in what we're building coming to play and benefiting us. But the highlights of this company is $0 to $24 million revenue run rate in 18 months. Right? In terms of deal strategy and executing, like this is something that I've tried to be a lot more sophisticated, is we played it perfectly. Okay, so 0 to 24 million revenue run rate in 18 months, expecting them to be profitable by Q1 this year. So which means that downside risk is mitigated, right? We don't have to worry about them running out of money so much. We play the timing perfectly so that we're basically investing now on the last round terms, which is 75 million post money. So 3x revenue multiple. And we are last money in the round, right? So the setup on this deal is like perfect. Amazing metrics on this deal. Profitable, so downside protected. This company grew 20x year over year, backed by a top tier VC. We are in, we hold the last allocation. Are you in or out? When you can tell that kind of story to investors, it's like amazing, right? All of these things fall into place, right? And for me, it's an exercise in just deal making, right? There are levels to this.
You know, I still have a ton of questions. I'm not following the questions come here. But do you have a time? Maybe a little bit more.
Sure.
If it's a little bit more, okay. Because after post-production, this is probably going to be 1 hour, 20 minutes and so. Uh, you know, so but I mean, basically longer is better.
No
Uh,
worries.
um, so zooming, going back to the first deal, how did you win the allocation there? And maybe you can ask, a bit articulate that. What was the appeal for you that to what was the thesis that you have on that deal? Perhaps I know I should not ask like multiple questions on one round, but I'm really curious because it's also challenging for me to win. I mean, be able to even find the greatest deal out there, the ones that who's not even need so much money, the ones that is very much they're cool, they're hot, attractive, charismatic, sexy, the deals like this is actually so hard to capture. A ton of founders that I'm talking and they cannot craft this. Most of the funds unfortunately cannot craft this story and this reality of the oversubscribed feeling, something hot, something moving.
Yeah.
And there wasn't some appeal for you for this or that deal?
I'll respond to this. I'm going to say that my view of a company is informed through diligence. Okay, so I never invest purely on a pitch deck. I have to meet the founders. I have a process. I want to see basic things that are expected in the data room for a company of that stage. And until then, I don't invest. And if the founder is like, I cannot wait, you have to write a check, otherwise we're closing next week, I will walk. Okay.
Yeah.
So your ability to like find deals is putting yourself out there, hustling, using your network, all of these things. But whether a deal or not is good, in my view, philosophically, is working through diligence. And this is it goes both ways. You need to do diligence, but the founder also needs to be in there, right, with you. If it's a founder who's like, I just want you to write a check, right? It doesn't work. And so all the founders I backed went through that process. So with Turing.com, why did this company make sense to me at the time? Okay, so by the way, let's just start with very basic. What does Turing.com do? And I'm going to go back to like 2018. Basically, the problem Turing was solving was that in a tech hub like San Francisco, the starting salary for a developer is like $250,000, like base salary, not including their bonus, not including the meals and the foosball table and whatever nonsense that they get in the office, right? So the fully loaded cost of, let's say, an engineer becomes like very, very expensive. Everybody's complaining about that. Okay, so why? One is supply demand scarcity, right? The demand for software engineers was far outstripping supply. The second reason is that everybody was trying to hire within 20 miles of the office, right? People who are physically near San Francisco or whatever city that we're talking about. And of course, now that's going to increase the supply-demand imbalance. So Turing's idea, and it sounds in a way trivial now, but in 2018, remember, this is like pre-pandemic, it wasn't intuitive at all. Turing's premise was that we are going to connect you with an equivalently skilled software engineer. They could be working in a city in Vietnam, in China, in Pakistan, in India, and they're going to be working remotely and virtually for your tech company on demand. So we're not placing full-time hires. You are almost like renting the ability to scale up your engineering force based on your demand. So the premise makes a lot of sense, right? The value proposition. The company can pay $250,000 base salary to an engineer, or with Turing.com, it's $70,000 a year, fully loaded, plus you go month to month. You don't need this guy, you can fire him. That's it. Okay, so the value proposition is very compelling, especially when clients had a shortage of engineers. Turing's edge, or at least the hypothesis, was they were going to use machine learning to scale the supply side. Okay, so let's run ads around the world and put a whole bunch of developers through a test and profile their work through a machine learning algorithm. So this was like the big technology breakthrough, right? How they were going to scale. Because fundamentally, the business is like, it's a services business model, right? You're placing a person and you're taking a 30% take rate or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. So I believe in the market. I believe in the prevalence of the market that it was going to get worse, not better. If you look at data from STEM graduates in the US versus demand for software engineer jobs, there was a consistent shortfall every single year, which means it's going to get worse and worse. Yeah. So that's my thesis. I like the market. I think it's a 10x better product or service. The founders were experienced founders in the sense that they had co-founded a company, exited before. It was a modest exit, I think like $30 million. And so besides having that experience, I know when founders come back, if you tell them, hey, your next company, you're going to get a $50 million exit, they're like, no, I'm going big, right? So the bar gets higher. So, I mean, that's my view of the psychology. Plus, they had some very interesting early angels, right? So they got Cyan Bannister, who was one of the first three angels in Uber, alongside Jason Calacanis, and then also Adam D'Angelo, who was like founder of Quora, right? At the time, he just left Facebook. So I invested in the cap table, basically second money that he took in, I was in. And a couple of events happened in the company's life cycle that were very instrumental. The first one was COVID, right? Not that I predicted it, but when COVID came, bang, they went on a rocket ship because suddenly all the companies were forced to go remote.
Yeah.
And they needed this workforce. So that was one. The second event, more recently, is the AI boom. Right. So what Turing did and what the founders did, which I thought was just expertly executed, was they said, hey, you know what? We are going to build out our talent base on the AI side. And we're not just going to provide engineers. We're also going to help enterprise build AI solutions, right? So a solutioning company. We just happen to have the engineering workforce around it. They also got a call from like Sam Altman and, they got summoned to OpenAI. This is the story that goes, and they thought it was like OpenAI needs engineers, right, to build out their models or whatever. And actually what they were looking for was OpenAI wanted training data from engineers. And so today, Turing actually not just has just engineering workforce, they are creating code, and that code is being used to train OpenAI, Anthropic, all of these like different code bases.
That's amazing. That's a great success story. It's amazing. Wow. Um, about any success from Asia so far? Like any big ones?
We're not there yet. And frankly, I struggle with Asia, right? And don't get me wrong, I want to be bullish on Asia. I feel like the time will come. In fact, I moved back to Singapore about 2.5, 3 years ago for this reason, to be in a position to.
Mm,
But when I look at the maturity of founders, the differences in the ecosystems, the challenges of the market, versus some of the deals that we're pulling a trigger on, let's say in the US or even some in Europe, it's a big gap, right? So I think the reality is that Asia has some time to go, and maybe I will make my own impact into this ecosystem my way, right? But helping create new investors, new syndicates out there, and hopefully uplift more founders.
I see. So that's your Asia thesis, right?
Yes, that's right.
All right, I think we can end with this because our audience is mostly English speaking Asia. Who knows? Maybe we can do a round two. A while later. Maybe we could talk about more about the Asia strategies. How we can make the Asia more catch up with the Silicon Valley. So anyways, Jed, I really enjoy with this, and I learn a lot of things. I'm learning a lot from you. I've been following you quite a while. Um, so again, this is going to be edited and then publish it. We will reach out to you back with this. Um, but I'd like to wrap up with this. Maybe if you have some final thoughts for not just for the audience, but think of that this could potentially go, I don't know, tens of thousands of people or hundreds of thousands of people potentially. Any message that you have?
My message to everyone is the investor mindset and the entrepreneur mindset, I think, are one and the same, right? It's different life phases and do on when we do one or the other. It's not easy. It's a grind, and you will have to suffer in order to win. But this is the game. This is what motivates us. This is what drives us. You need to have that intellectual curiosity. You need to have that energy. You need that tenacity to be successful. I never thought we at Angel School would be where we are today. I still don't consider what we do successful, but it's also that hunger and fire that drives us to like try really, really hard every single day. So all of you out there, hold on to that energy, and I wish you all the success in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Chad. Really appreciate it.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Arden. Thank you, team.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone joining us today. Really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy with the call. And please subscribe for getting the recording as well. And please also feel free to reach out to us, also Jet as well. And don't forget to take the free resources that he was really kind to share with us with this audience. So feel free to do that too. Right? Thanks everyone. All right. Have a great day. Thanks everyone.